That way I can get that nasty boob off the screen there. Thanks for coming, everybody. My name is Drew Curtis, and I run Fark.com. What I'm going to present today is a little bit more organized than what I did last year, which is basically more observations on the media with some specifics, basically, rather than the normal stuff, which was just goofing around. And that's Storm, by the way, who had about an hour's worth of nap and is not too excited right now. So the subject of the talk in the actual brochure was which will kill us first, the bird flu or Janet Jackson's boob. However, something else happened in between when I came up with that idea and this, which was Dick Cheney shot a guy. You may have heard of that. And it was actually a little bit better because there's lately not been that many specifics about the bird flu in the sense that it's still kind of a non-story at this stage in the game. So rather than going with that, it was more easy to take something a little more pointed that was run up and down the media flagpole recently. So what do Dick Cheney's bad aim and Janet Jackson's boob have in common? Mainstream media, it's got to sell some ads. And I will connect the two dots here as the talk goes on. So how did Dick Cheney end up in the media for 8 days? That's a really good question. What really happened was on February 11th, 2006, which was a Saturday, Cheney was out hunting with a friend of his named Harry Whittington, or actually they said he was a friend of his. The guy's really a big dollar fundraiser with the Republican Party. And if you raise enough money for the Republican Party, you get to go on shooting trips with Dick Cheney, apparently. Yeah, that's actually really what happened. So he was out there, and Whittington, who is not much of a hunter, ended up getting himself kind of grazed during the hunting accident. To give you an idea of what was going on there, for those of you, I think a lot of people here are more familiar with firearms than most, but I play soccer on a pretty much a daily basis, and we talk about these things like every single night. And one of the things I discovered is that people don't really know how shotguns work. And some people are not aware that shotguns take two kinds of ammo. You got slugs, which is bullets, and then you got shot, which is what these guys were using, which is basically a whole bunch of BBs packed in, and the blast comes out in a cone. What happened with Whittington was he was a little bit too close, and he got caught in the crossfire, got grazed a little bit, kind of on the side of his face. I don't know which side of the face it was exactly, but the point being he wasn't caught dead on. But at any rate, these things happen. In fact, my great-grandfather, there's a story that's told in the family where one time he was trying to catch a fox that kept on getting into the chicken coop, and so he took a shotgun out one night to try to catch it because he heard a lot of noise in the chicken coop. Opens the door of the chicken coop, thinks he sees the fox, and blows both barrels off and kills all the chickens. All of them. No problem at all, because that's how shotgun shot works. It's got such a spread on it, you could wipe out an entire chicken coop with 2 barrels. That's it. So, compared to this, I missed this, actually. I was in Vegas. We were having a Fark party, and I was drunk. I mean, we'd started really early in the afternoon. Of course, in Vegas, the Super Bowl starts at around 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, so we'd started a lot earlier than that. We were at the Hooters Casino, which is distracting in and of itself. It was halftime, and why even bother watching the halftime show? There's nothing really going on there. Most of them have been pretty innocuous. And Hooters was holding a wing eating contest at the time for the Fark party, and 2 of the people in it were Farkers, and the third was just some guy that kind of wandered in accidentally. And apparently the key there was, I don't know how many of you guys have had Hooters wings or not. They're all right. But what happened is that the 2 Farkers that entered the contest entered it based under the assumption that it would be Hooters hot sauce, which is edible, as opposed to what they actually gave them, which was something like battery acid. They made up a special batch to try to kill these guys. So all this stuff is going on, and basically I just completely missed it. But luckily, one of our admins, there are 3 other guys that pick licks aside from me, was watching the Super Bowl end near a computer, saw it, and immediately hit the article queue for submissions, and somebody had sent it in. So he went ahead and popped it up immediately, and it crashed. Because 10,000 people in 2 seconds went, aha, crash. And what happened was that through the course of the next 2 hours or so, people continued to submit this link over and over and over again, and Peter would continue to replace the link on the main page with whatever was coming in, because Farkers have got TiVos, and they've apparently got screen capture on there. So we got it about 20 times before finally it showed up somewhere that could actually withstand the traffic. So this thing went crashing over and over and over again throughout the afternoon. It actually ended up being the story that got more clicks on it than anything in the entire year. And considering we were running boobies links on the main page still at the time, that's saying something, let me tell you. So, but the question is that in relation to the Dick Cheney thing, that ended up staying in the media for not only a good 2 weeks, but still gets mentioned every year. I think it's going to be one of those annual things that they'll talk about every Super Bowl when it comes around. So the question is, how did that happen? How do things like this end up in the media and stick in there? What's deemed newsworthy? The answer is it's basically something that the public hasn't heard yet that might be interesting to them. It seems kind of simple, but as it turns out, most news actually is not very interesting at all and needs a little bit punching up. What keeps a story in the news past the first mention is something that I've come to term mitigating factors. Stories can't come back around again unless something changes. Media can't write articles that say, nothing's changed, everything's the same. They've tried it. It doesn't work. In particular with that the one chick down in Aruba. They try to trot those out every once in a while. My opinion on that, the reason that's so popular is because everybody wants to go cover it on location. Seriously, I think that's it. And at any rate, they have run a few articles that say nothing's changed, everything's the same on that. But in general, they can't do that. I got told this when I was doing the interview circuit, when I started doing it about 3 years ago, and started calling back places that I hadn't, that I'd already done an interview with, who said, well, are you hyping a book, or is there a movie coming out? And I'm like, no, not really. And they're like, well, we have nothing really that we can talk to you about, because nothing's changed. So until something actually changes, they pretty much have to go ahead and not cover something. The only exception would be, and the Aruba thing notwithstanding, is basically when something goes retro, which is basically, wow, we haven't talked about this in 3 months, usually to be the year anniversary of the tsunami, or we'll find out when Katrina comes back around, they're like, you know, the where are they now type stories. That's about the only time the media can run another article on the same subject, period. Unless there are mitigating factors. Mitigating factor number 1, crime. Crime stories always get 2 or 3 mentions. The first one is basically when it occurs. Dumbass shoots friend. That's going to get a mention. The second time around when it's going to get a media mention, and nothing having changed other than that, is when it goes to court, where they'll do dumbass shoots friend, and then take the original article, copy and paste, and then bug out of the office and go drink for the rest of the afternoon. It will be almost exactly the same article word for word every single time. The third time that it will occur, maybe, and this is only maybe because sometimes it doesn't actually go this far depending on overall interest, is the sentencing phase, where the trial's over, they were found guilty or innocent, and if they're found innocent, by the way, that dropped right off the radar. Nobody cares about that. Or if they're found guilty, they will announce what the sentence was, copy and paste the original article on the back, and book it, and they're out of there. And that's basically how the media cycle works for crime stuff. They're usually good for about 2 or 3 mentions just based on anybody doing anything, period. Other mitigating factors, celebrity involvement. If you shoot a guy, you'll get a passing mention. Maybe. But if Dick Cheney shoots a guy, then that's going to go a little bit farther. Major media firestorm. Next mitigating factor, this one's a little amorphous, is the slow news day. If nothing is really going on, the more innocuous articles will start occurring at a regular basis in the media. And a good example of this. Happiest guy about 9/11, Gary Condit. You guys remember Gary Condit? Most of you probably forgot it, because so did everybody else right after that happened. But at the time, on 9/10, he was the front page guy, because he supposedly killed one of his aides. It ended up turning out that it looks like he didn't do it. His smarminess was basically distracting everybody. He seemed like a guy who could have done it, but it turned out that it looks like he didn't actually do it. The other people that were happy about 9/11 were sharks. It actually is something also that comes around every spring usually, is whenever the first shark attack article will occur in the paper, and they'll usually run those all summer. The year 9/11 occurred, it had gotten so bad that nothing had happened the entire summer. They got all the way into September with shark attacks. And then when that actually occurred, then it dropped right off the radar, never to be seen again until the following year, in about May, when somebody got an arm bit off. And these things happen pretty much on a regular basis. By mitigating factors, journalists basically have to use those in order to create news. And I don't necessarily mean by completely making it up, but basically by accentuating things that are not really important. And it'll occur in longer news events, like our main two. Cheney ended up shooting a guy during a slow news week. And not only did he shoot a guy during a slow news week, but he did it on a Sunday, and this was extremely bad, because if you're going to do something during a slow news week, do it on Friday. Presidential administrations have known about this for years. The media has a name for it. I forget what they call it, but it's something akin to like the big information dump. On Friday at about 5 o'clock, anything bad that's happened during the last week, the White House will dump then. Because as far as I can tell, the news media goes home around noon on Friday. They just bug out, they get the hell out of there. So 5 o'clock on Friday, they run it. Nobody's really going to stick around to write an article about it, so they know they can get away with this. And they've been doing it forever. And this isn't just the Bush administration that does it. Clinton administration did it. Bush administration did it. All the way back to when mainstream media tactics were first invented. And I don't know when that was. For all I know, it's George Washington. But they started doing it in order to basically get around the slow news week, essentially. To take advantage of the fact that nobody's really going to be excited enough to read the newspaper on Saturday anyways. And go from there. So what happened is that Cheney ended up shooting a guy on a slow news day, and I was asleep. The news article started coming in on a Sunday. The actual event occurred on Saturday, and on Sunday around sometime in the afternoon or so, this thing actually broke. And I was napping. I was out for 2 hours. And normally what happens on Total Fark, which is our subscription part of the service where you can see all the stuff that gets submitted, they start getting really irritated when a news flash level event occurs and nobody sets one on the main page, because people will then continue to submit over and over again. The Total Farkers who have to sit here and watch this go on get really irritated by it, and so then they start submitting their own taglines. And I brought a few with me to show you, including one, Cheney begins coup. We also have Cheney shoots lawyer, who cares? Cheney drops all pretenses, begins hunting humans for sport. Cheney shoots a man, heard to say, I told you I was hardcore. Cheney shot a man in Texas just to watch him die. Not content with just screwing the common man, Dick Cheney changes his shooting move. Dick Cheney, in a desperate bid to reaffirm GOP's national security credentials, caps a bitch. Dick Cheney goes hunting for some male bonding, shoots a load at her friend, snickers, and hands him a towel. Cheney exercises his Second Amendment rights all over a 70-year-old man. Cheney, fed up with hospital waiting lists, decides to begin harvesting organs on his own. VP Cheney hunts down the non-believers. Cheney takes tort reform one step too far. And my favorite, Cheney injures friend in extreme bukkake incident. There were literally 200 of these that kept rolling in the entire afternoon, and oftentimes when a news flash level event will occur, we'll let it sit, because we don't need to be the first guys out of the gate. Fark's tag is we need to be funny, and so oftentimes you only have to wait about 5 minutes or so. Last time we did this was when Duke lost to LSU in the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament, which was absolutely fantastic, by the way, but I won't talk about that because I can rant on for days. But I knew this was coming, and I was out, and I was drinking, so I couldn't do it myself, and I called our link picker guy, and I said, hey, get ready, Duke's about to lose. And he was watching it because he thought that might happen. And I told him, he's like, so what do you want me to do? And I said, just wait until the funniest one comes in, give it 5 minutes, and he did. And basically the taglines are pretty much what makes Fark, so we have to wait until the humor shows up. Luckily, it's in plentiful supply. I mean, literally, this is only like a few of the hundreds we received. So, first mitigating factor, the news hits the wires 24 hours after it actually happens. Now, how did this actually occur? Dick Cheney shot a guy on Saturday. The news doesn't hit the wires until Sunday. And the only reason it hit the wires on Sunday was because on Sunday, the owner of the land where this occurred called a buddy of hers over at the Corpus Christi Times news office and said, hey, guess what? Cheney shot a guy. What do you think we ought to do about it? And I don't know if he answered that question or not, but he ran an article out the door pretty quickly. And that's how that came. But here's the thing. when, in order to get confirmation, because reporters, good reporters, don't normally just run with any news that they get off the top of their heads, called Cheney's office for